guys, and welcome back to Astral Cognition. Today's video is going to be a little longer than our normal videos because we're going to be diving headfirst into a topic that, at least for me, is extremely interesting. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator.
However, before we get into the tiny details of the system, we first have to explain the 16 types that Myers-Briggs has. In short, each personality type in Myers-Briggs has 4 letters. The first letter is I or E, representing introversion or extroversion. However, MBTI has a slightly different definition of what introversion and extroversion are than the definition you may already know.
In MBTI, introversion and extroversion refer to a person's preference when in a conversation. Introversion, according to Myers-Briggs, is defined as a person that prefers to respond in social situations. Introversion, in this case, doesn't mean that you are shy or reclusive, although an introvert can be those two things. Rather, it just means that you would like people to come to you and start conversations rather than initiating the conversation yourself.
Extroversion, in the case of MBTI, is a person who prefers to initiate conversations with others rather than be approached. Again, extroverts in terms of MBTI aren't always the impulsive or bombastic type. Extroversion in this case just means that you would rather start up a conversation with people rather than waiting for them to come to you.
The second letter in each type is an N or an S, which are intuition and sensing respectively. The reason why intuition is represented with an N is because introversion is already represented by an I. Without going into too much detail, these letters represent the way you perceive the world around you. And it can be a bit tricky to understand as your perception affects everything you've ever experienced.
Sensing represents those that prefer the concrete world around them, which mainly occurs through their senses like sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. Sensors are very good at knowing exact dates and have a very good grasp on the physical world around them. When relaying their experiences, sensors will talk about the ambience and how things looked or heard. When describing a person, they may talk about conversations they've had with a person or the person's appearance. Sensors are exceptionally good at remembering physical or material aspects about their experiences. They aren't, however, so good with making connections between events or people. Because of their preference for the physical world, many sensing tend to miss out on the patterns in their lives and can be a little dismissive that some of these patterns exist.
Intuitive types are essentially the complete opposite. Intuition represents those that prefer seeing patterns and making connections. Intuitive types tend to talk about the patterns they have seen or the abstractions that they have made. They tend to stay in their head a majority of the time, which causes them to miss out on the physical aspects of a memory and focus more on the connection that they made from that memory to a broader idea. When an intuitive type speaks, they tend to speak about things that could be rather than how things are. Their words tend to focus more on a broader meaning, not what they actually saw or heard. And though they aren't usually focused on the physical world, intuitive types are extremely good at predicting future outcomes and connecting the dots between events, people, and ideas.
It can take a while to figure out your preference of perceiving the world. Everyone does a little bit of both, but MBTI is all about finding what you prefer to do and what you feel more comfortable doing.
Moving on to the third letter. The third letter in each type is either a T or an F, which stand for thinking and feeling. This is a little easier to understand than the second letter because an easy way to figure this out is to analyze the way you speak. That doesn't mean it won't take time to find out.
In MBTI, the third letter is all about how you make decisions. Thinking, in this sense, refers to a preference to make logical judgments based on statistics, data, and reasoning. Thinking types value logic deeply and aren't prone to making a ton of decisions based on what is morally or ethically right. Rather, they make decisions based on what the data shows them is the right decision or perhaps what they've deduced to be the most logical decision. You will often hear thinking types say, I think, or what do you think, a lot. And this is because they value logic more than morals.
Feeling in MBTI isn't just about emotions. In this sense, it's more about moral and ethical judgments. A feeling type will often prefer to make decisions based on what they feel is the right thing to do, not necessarily what is the most logical. Feeling types will, more often than not, make a decision based on what aligns with their own or the group's beliefs and moral values. Some feeling types may value harmony, while others may value authenticity. In any case, you will find that feeling types will either implicitly or explicitly tell the world what their morals are. You will often see them saying, I believe or I feel. And what comes after is often an expression of their morals or their perception of what's ethically sound.
Finally, we come to the last letter of every type. This last letter is either a J or a P, which each stands for judging and perceiving respectively. This letter is mainly concerned with where the type organizes the best.
Judging types will tend to be better organized in the external world. And although this will vary from type to type, judging types as a whole will try to organize the space around them. This can be their room, their apartments, but it can also include their daily schedules or their time. Many judging types are known for their apparent cleanliness and orderliness, but this cleanliness is mainly for their own sake. These types need their space to be organized because it helps them organize their thoughts. If the outer world is in disarray, the inner world will be in disarray as well. And for a majority of judging types, that means disaster.
Perceiving types, on the other hand, aren't as organized externally, but it doesn't bother them a whole lot. This is because many perceiving types don't feel the same desire to organize their inner and outer worlds. Rather, these types tend to be much more disorganized, which is a source of comfort for them. It takes a lot of effort for a perceiving type to organize things, so they often don't do it. These types are more spontaneous and impulsive than the judging types. For these types, it can be very hard to prioritize tasks, manage finances, and important dates, since their preference for an unscheduled life often means they forget or don't pay attention to these things. That doesn't mean they can't learn how to do this over time. However, in fact, many perceiving types do learn how to be more organized in their life. MBTI is all about preference. It is said that the perceiving types prefer spontaneity over schedules.
That covers our introduction to the system behind the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. We hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you learned something today, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to stay updated on future releases. Also, comment down below what your type is. I know that I'm an INTP, Raji is an ESTP, and Elena is an ISFP. It'd be interesting to see what types we have out there. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.